Exposed, divorced with nothing, wife discovers hidden strength to fight back after 15 years. Sarah sat on the fraying couch of her once cozy living room, staring at the empty space where her husband's belongings had been. The air felt heavy, almost suffocating. Outside, the sun shone brightly on the manicured lawns of Maplewood, illuminating the white picket fences that enclosed the very picture-perfect lives of her neighbors. But for Sarah, that picture had shattered into a million pieces the moment Brian walked out, leaving her not only with the kids but also with a hollow feeling deep within her heart. Her life, once a seamless tapestry of school runs and community gatherings, now felt like a series of cold stares and hushed whispers. She felt their judgment like 1,000 daggers, as they peered over their fences and murmured, "Poor Sarah." The very community that had celebrated her marriage now looked down on her with pity, reminding her of the worthlessness she was struggling to shake. Days morphed into weeks, and in the midst of turmoil, Sarah stumbled upon her old canvas tucked away in the attic, memories of her long-lost passion igniting a flicker of hope. As her paintbrush danced over the surface, she poured out her heartache in brilliant strokes of color. Each piece became a story, her tears mixing with paint to create vibrant blues and fiery reds that mirrored her struggle. At first, it was like a soft whisper of life returning, but soon it evolved into a steady beat, a rhythm she felt pulsing through her veins. One afternoon, while painting in her makeshift studio a corner of the garage as the scent of fresh paints wafted around her, her neighbor, Mr. Thompson, an elderly veteran with a twinkle in his eye, wandered over. "Why not share your gift with the world, Sarah? Show them what you've created," he encouraged, his voice laced with warmth. Just like that, a renewed determination sparked within her. "Maybe this could be the beginning of something new. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. Just as she began to regain control over her life, the ground again shifted beneath her feet. An alarming discovery about her children's school bubbled to the surface. It seemed that not all children were given equal opportunities. Resources were being squandered, leaving many students far behind. Sarah's heart stuttered with injustice this could not stand. The very future of her children and the community she loved hung in the balance. Fueled by righteous indignation, she rallied support from old friends and acquaintances, overcoming her self-doubt. As she stood on the steps of the community center, clutching her artwork, she realized it wasn't just her story she was telling anymore. It was about fighting for equitable resources that every child deserved. The crowd buzzed with murmurs of surprise and disbelief. Could this once ignored mother really be a beacon of inspiration? Just as she prepared to speak, a loud commotion ripped through the air, snapping the audience's focus from her intentions. Uncertainty swirled, leaving Sarah at a crossroads. Would she retreat, or would she seize this moment to reclaim her narrative and ignite the change they all desperately needed? The answer rested in the depths of her heart. The gasps of surprise in the crowd sliced through the air like a knife. The noise grew louder, a chaotic mix of whispers and shouts. Sarah's heart raced. She tried to focus on the source of the commotion, but it was hard to ignore the feeling of panic bubbling within her. "Is everything okay?" she shouted, her voice cutting through the sounds of confusion. Moments later, she spotted a young mother struggling to keep her two children in check as their arguing escalated into shrieks. Sarah's presence momentarily quelled the ruckus, the audience turning to watch. Their faces reflected a mixture of concern and anticipation. With each second stretching out like an eternity, Sarah took a deep breath. She remembered Mr. Thompson's words and felt a surge of determination pushing her forward. "Hey everyone! Let us all take a breath together," she called, her tone stronger than she felt. It was as if time paused, the chaotic energy suspended in air. Slowly, tensions eased and the voices calmed. With her heart still pounding, Sarah could feel her own doubts whispering, urging her to retreat. But something inside her resisted, a powerful inner voice echoing her resolve. This is just the beginning, it seemed to say. You are stronger than you know. As the crowd settled into a quiet hum, Sarah's eyes locked on the young mother still wrestling with her children. We all know what it feels like to be unheard and unseen, she said, her voice steady. But together, we can change that for our kids. They deserve more than what they've been given. The weight of her words hung in the air, and she could see the crowd beginning to nod in agreement. Energy shifted. Sarcasm was traded for hope. That heavy feeling in her chest lightened just a little. With newfound courage, she spoke about the issues at the school, the lack of funding, resources being misappropriated. She articulated the fears that had long kept her up at night, knowing her children were missing out. More voices joined in, mothers and fathers standing up one by one, sharing their stories of frustration. It felt powerful and uplifting, the community she once felt separated from now pulling together. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out from the edge of the crowd. Who do you think you are? It was Brian, her ex-husband. Shock cut through Sarah, twisting her stomach into knots as he sauntered closer, an unsettling smirk on his face. People turned, uncertain, as they recognized him. You're just a washed-up artist trying to relive your glory days. Sarah felt the color drain from her face. An instinctual part of her wanted to respond with anger, but she held her ground. The moment hung precariously, tension crackling like a live wire. She could feel every eye on her, judgment and disbelief clouding the air. Brian, no! This is about the kids, she managed to say, her voice wavering but firm. She couldn't allow him to take back her power. We need to fight for their future. Are you with us? The crowd stirred, the collective energy palpable, waiting breathlessly for his response or for hers. Would she let his words define her again? Or would she stand tall against him and everyone who doubted her? The stakes felt higher than ever, and in that moment, Sarah understood something crucial. This wasn't just about her but about every mother, every child, every story that needed to be told. Just wait, Brian retorted, his eyes narrowing. You have no idea what's coming. The crowd gasped again. A chill of uncertainty swept over her. But deep inside, Sarah felt something shifting, a steely resolve. She was ready to battle for her art, her voice, and the future her children deserved. But what did Brian really mean? As she stood there, all eyes on her, she took a breath, knowing everything would change from this point on. Let us show him what we can do. The next moment, she glanced at her artwork, an emblem of her struggle and her newfound hope. Little did she know, this was only the beginning of the fight to reclaim not just her life but the lives of the children whose futures hung in the balance. The silence that followed Brian's taunt hung heavy in the air, a thick blanket of anticipation. Sarah felt every pair of eyes fixate on her. She took a step forward, heart racing, anger brewing beneath her skin. This was her moment, the turning point she had been waiting for. Brian, she said, her voice low but steady, you think this is just about me? She could feel the weight of her words rippling through the crowd. You don't know what I've sacrificed, what I've fought through, not just for me but for all of us. His smirk wavered for a moment, and she seized the chance. I'm here to be a voice for those who feel voiceless. This isn't about proving anything to you. She gestured around. It's about our children. It's about making sure they have what they need to succeed, to dream big, and to not live in the shadow of doubt. The crowd began to stir again, restlessness turning to murmurs of agreement. Some nodded, others raised their fists, the air buzzing with a collective determination. Sarah felt an electric energy shoot through her, igniting the flame she had so desperately tried to keep hidden. 15 years of being belittled and ignored. She continued, her resolve building. No more. I'll not just let that be my story. I am a mother, an artist, and part of this community. I am proud of who I am and what I can give. The urgency in her voice resonated among the crowd as they leaned in, eyes wide, connecting with her raw emotion. Brian rolled his eyes, clearly agitated, but his dismissive smirk faltered further. You really think you can gather all of them behind you? They'll turn against you as soon as the storms come. No! A voice rang out from the back. Ella, a mother who had always faded into the background, pushing her daughter's stroller. We're tired of being silenced. We stand with you. The crowd erupted with applause and shouts, people rallying behind Sarah in a way she had never anticipated. Ella's courage fueled others to stand and declare their support. One by one, parents stepped up, each story melding into a rich tapestry of trials, tribulations, and sheer will. Suddenly, she noticed faces she had seen many times around the neighborhood, her neighbors, parents she barely knew, each buzzing with passion as they echoed sentiments of hope and change. Together, they painted a picture of resilience before her eyes. As the energy in the air swirled into a storm of solidarity, Sarah glanced back at Brian. "You've underestimated our strength," she said, a fierce glint in her eye. "But you won't break us. Not now. Not ever." Brian's expression shifted, a flicker of worry creeping into his features. The crowd seemed to advance a step, a wall of unity rising behind her. Sarah's heart swelled as she realized the community she thought she had lost was rising with her. They, too, deserved to reclaim their voices. Then the ground shook slightly underfoot, a subtle reminder that their battle was far from over. In the distance, the sky darkened. A storm was brewing on the horizon. Could it symbolize the tumult they would face, or was it merely a harbinger of change? "Let us get to work," Sarah cried, raising her hands as if to gather the storm instead of yield to it. "We'll show them our strength. We'll take a stand for our kids and for every voice that's been silenced." Cheers erupted, echoing off the buildings and carrying into the streets. Even Brian seemed momentarily taken aback by the sight of such unity. But just as Sarah felt the tide turning, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. An alert flashed on the screen, one that sent a chill down her spine. The news had broken. Someone had leaked information about a critical issue at her children's school that could jeopardize everything she had just begun to fight for. Heart racing anew, she clutched her phone tightly. What would it mean for their newfound strength? As she navigated the chaotic swirl of emotions, she realized this was a battle she hadn't seen coming. Could they really handle this next challenge together? The crowd buzzed with excitement, unaware of the storm that now loomed over their heads. What would Sarah do next? Would she find the strength to confront this new threat, or was she about to face the hardest moment of her life? Sarah's heart thudded against her ribs as she stared at the alert on her phone, the bright screen blurring for a brief second as panic clawed at her throat. The news was everywhere, swirling like a tempest, as parents caught wind of the problem. Promises made and hopes lifted were at risk of being dashed. She blinked rapidly, forcing back the waves of overwhelming fear. "What's going on?" Ella asked, sidling up beside her with a tight grip on her daughter's stroller. Concern etched her brow, mirroring the growing anxiety that tugged at Sarah's core. "They leaked something about the school," Sarah managed to stammer, gripping her phone as if it held all the answers. Dread twisted her stomach into knots as she imagined the headlines, the whispers. Parents would panic. They would surely turn back to Brian, the same leader who had belittled their courage moments ago. "I can't let this happen." The energy that had ignited the crowd moments before began to wane. Faces shifted from excitement to uncertainty, that contagious buzz fracturing like glass. Sarah took a deep breath. She couldn't let her fears shine through. She had to act. Listen up," she called out, raising her voice to Carrie. "We can't let stories like this dictate our strength. We know who we are and why we're here. They want us to panic, to feel powerless, but we are not powerless." The murmurs shifted back towards her, tentative but inquisitive. "But how?" A middle-aged man with weary eyes called out from the crowd. "What can we do against the system? They have the power." She locked eyes with him, sending her heart thumping wildly. "We fight together. We demand answers. We stand for our kids who depend on us to push through the noise. If we back down now, we not only let our children down, but we let ourselves be silenced again." The crowd hesitated, but slowly, a collective spark flared back into life. Sarah noticed Ella nodding fervently, a glint of determination flickering in her gaze. But they'll attack us, use this against us. Someone shouted, fear lacing their words. Maybe, Sarah replied with a fire igniting in her gut. But if we hold on to the truth, if we stick together, they can't take us down. She thought of the moments, the long nights supporting her kids, the quiet sacrifices she had made for their dreams, truth coursing in her veins like a current. Brian stood off to the side, his earlier smugness replaced with unease as he watched them rally. She saw it. He didn't know this version of them. This was the kind of fight they hadn't seen coming. Are we afraid of what they might say? Sarah continued, her voice gaining momentum. Or are we afraid of not standing up for what's right? We are the community. We just have to believe it. We need to dig deep, reach out to each other. We'll fight for our voices. Slowly, one by one, parents began to nod and then pump their fists in the air, a collective roar of agreement flooding through them once more. Sarah couldn't believe it, the unexpected fight rebuilding their spirit. She raised her phone above her head, signaling defiance against the outside world. Let this be our moment. We become the loudest voices they can't ignore. We will not let falsehoods drown us. A shout rang out from the crowd, and soon dozens of voices repeated it, echoing into the night. We will not be silenced. But that fire of hope sparked another sensation inside her, fear of losing all of this, that maybe the news they had to face was bigger than she imagined. As the rally transformed into an uprising of belief, she caught sight of a figure lurking on the fringe, their intent unreadable. Her gut twisted. Who were they, and what did they know? Just then, there came a distant rumble, the storm in the sky finally releasing its first drops. The rain began to pour, but no one moved. Each person stood resolute, unwavering amid the tempest, and Sarah sensed another challenge ahead. What secrets could surface in the coming storm? Would the truth serve as their ultimate weapon, or would it unravel everything they had fought so hard to build together? As the winds howled, Sarah looked up, jaw clenched. This moment was just the beginning. The rain fell harder, soaking the pavement, and running in streams around the feet of the parents who stood their ground. Sarah felt the cold droplets land on her skin but welcomed the sensation. The downpour reflected the storm brewing inside her. This was her moment, and she needed to seize it. Are we just going to stand here? Ella shouted, her voice cutting through the rain. We need to take this fight beyond our little bubble. We need a plan. Sarah felt a rush of appreciation for Ella. Her friend had found her voice too. You're right. We can organize. Set up meetings, build a coalition. We can't just let this fester. The urgency in her voice matched the motions of her heart. In the crowd, heads nodded, and parents began to bounce ideas off one another. The nervous energy shifted into something palpable, a spirit of solidarity sparking in the rain. How about a protest? Someone suggested. We could get signs, make sure they know we're not backing down. Yes. Another voice chimed in. We hit the school board next week. They need to see how many of us stand together. Sarah clenched her fists, fighting back an overwhelming swell of hope. This was where change started, in the uncomfortable chaos of raw voices and passion. Let us do it. Let us write letters, contact the press, get our community involved. We can't fold in silence. As the rain continued to pour, Sarah could feel the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She envisioned marching with bright signs, slogans of unity filling the air, a clarion call for every parent to rise. Then, the figure from earlier shifted into the light of the street lamps, emerging from the shadows. The unmistakable form of Brian stepped forward, a storm of tension crackling in the air between them. His presence cast a shadow over the moment, thunder rumbling in the distance like a warning. You really think this is going to change anything? He called out with a smirk, dripping with condescension. You think a few signs are going to make a difference? This is a futile effort. For a second, doubt flickered in Sarah's mind, but she pushed it aside. Don't underestimate the power of a united community, Brian. You think you can silence us? You've underestimated our strength for far too long. He took another step forward, his eyes narrowing. They'll label you as troublemakers. You'll regret this. You think your story is worth a headline? The crowd stilled, uncertainty hanging heavily in the rain-soaked air. Sarah felt her heart race, but determination rose with it. This wasn't just for her anymore. It was for every parent, for every child who deserved a voice. We're not troublemakers. We're parents fighting for our children's future, she declared, her voice steady as she spoke from the depths of her heart. We deserve to be heard. We won't hide in shadows anymore. A clap of thunder punctuated her words, and a unified cheer erupted, drowning out Brian's sneer. The other parents surged forward, embracing the tide of empowerment. The storm was no longer merely an inconvenience. It was their ally in the fight. As Sarah soaked in the energy surrounding her, a newfound hope blossomed within. She could see that this was just the beginning. But as the storm raged on, she couldn't shake the feeling that bigger challenges awaited. What truths lay hidden in the depths of this battle? Would they remain resolute in the face of obstacles still hiding in the shadows? As the rain fell harder, a small voice in her head whispered a truth she never wanted to face. Maybe it was time to confront her own fears and secrets. The sound of their rallying cries echoed in her ears, but beneath them, doubt stirred like a shadow. What if the heart of the storm wasn't just outside, but deep within her too? Would she find the strength to confront it? And as that thought lingered, Sarah glanced at Brian one last time, knowing this fight was far from over. The rain showed no mercy, drenching every parent who gathered at the schoolyard, but Sarah felt a warmth building inside her, stoked by the fervor around her. The previous encounter with Brian ignited a fire she hadn't realized was there. The heavy clouds overhead turned to smoke as she inhaled the sharp air, filling her lungs with determination. Turning to her fellow parents, she sensed the collective pulse of their shared fear and anger. Their eyes reflected the same mixture of hope and anxiety. Sarah could see it in Ella, whose fiery spirit was now contagious. "Let us start with a committee," Ella suggested, her voice ringing with confidence above the storm. "We meet tomorrow to plan how we can reach out to more parents. How do we spread the word?" Heads bobbed in agreement, and voices rose as they started brainstorming. Ideas cascaded like the rain around them. It felt good to share this weight, to open up the possibilities that lay ahead. The fear of Brian's threat felt lighter, diminished by the gravity of their shared purpose. Sarah found herself drawn back to the thought of Brian's golf. He was right about one thing: the world would label them. How would they ever be taken seriously? But deep down, she realized it didn't matter. They were tired of being silent and invisible, and it was time to stand up. As the group began to disperse, exhilaration mingled with the smell of wet earth. Sarah lingered, running her fingers through her rain-soaked hair. She faced the dark clouds overhead and shouted into the storm. "We won't be silent. We will make the world see us." A few parents turned back, smiles illuminating their faces. It was a tiny spark, but every fire starts with one. Sarah felt empowered by each agreement, every nod of enthusiasm. This was becoming real, and yet a voice in her mind crashed through her buoyancy. Would they stand united against the aftermath of old wounds? Would her past insecurities scream louder than her intentions? She had distanced herself from confrontation for too long. What if taking a stand brought everything she had been avoiding crashing to the surface? Her phone buzzed in her pocket, a message. It was from Gary. Her ex told you I'd sweep in and handle it, didn't I? The bravado in that text was suffocating. A familiar pit formed in her stomach. Just when she had begun to feel like she had control, there he was again, reminding her how inescapable he was. Would she need to protect her plans from him too? Resolutely she stood tall. No more hiding. If she could rally others, maybe she could face him head-on when the time came. She sent a reply, "I'm making plans. You can't win this time." As Sarah walked home through the downpour, her heart raced like the storm above. She was finally stepping into her power, yet the shadows of her past swirled around her. The rain cleansed her, but it also brought clarity. She needed allies, and she needed to face her biggest fear. What lies ahead for Sarah? As she prepared for the heated days of activism, would she also find the courage to confront the man she had once loved, who now left echoes of fear? With every step, she wondered if confronting her ex would be harder than facing the storm outside. There was no turning back now, only the uncertain path ahead, where bravery met lingering doubts in the eye of the storm. Sarah barely stirred when the morning light broke through the clouds, but a refreshing sense of purpose greeted her. The rain had cooled the world, washing away some of the weight of her worries. She found strength at the schoolyard, a flicker of unity igniting something deep inside her. This was it, she was ready to make a difference. After slipping on a pair of rain boots, she stepped outside. The grass glistened with remnants of the storm, drops still clinging to the edges like tiny jewels. The air felt alive, buzzing around her as she headed to her first official meeting with the committee. Ella was already there, poring over a makeshift agenda. Her face lit up when she saw Sarah approach. "You made it. I was starting to think you'd bail." "Bail? Not a chance," Sarah smiled. Every step toward this moment had been fueled by anxiety and excitement, and she realized she needed to take a deep breath. "Let us do this." They gathered in the cramped cafeteria, transforming it into a hub of determination. Parents trickled in, their faces wary but resolute. Some exchanged nervous glances, while others fished out rain-soaked notebooks, eager to share ideas. Sarah felt exhilaration rise with every new arrival. They were about to do something extraordinary. As ideas flowed, plans for meetings, pamphlets to create, events to rally, enthusiasm took over. A moment arrived when Sarah shared her own plan for a community rally. "We can invite everyone, get the kids involved too. Let us show how many of us care." The room buzzed in her proposal's wake. Laughter erupted over suggested signs with playful slogans, and Sarah could see them coalescing into a movement. Each laugh and nod was a brick in the foundation they were building. She captured a moment in her mind, a snapshot of joy that felt like it belonged in history as the moment they stood tall. But as vibrations of excitement filled the air, a shadow crossed Sarah's mind. Could they actually pull it off? She swiftly shook off doubts. The committee was stronger than her fears. They were united, and she was determined to stay involved. Lunchtime approached, and that was when reality struck. A notification lit up Sarah's phone. It was another message from Gary. "You can't do this without me. Let us talk later today." A chill gripped her thoughts. Did he have to intrude now? She could almost hear his smug voice echoing in her head, reminding her how they had once shared such plans, only to have them twisted into control. This was a different Sarah, but would she have the strength to not only face him but tell him she was done letting him dictate her life? Ella nudged her gently, sensing her distress. "Hey, are you okay?" "Just thinking," Sarah whispered. She could feel the weight of her past colliding headfirst with her ambitions. A fight was ahead, that was clear. Not just with Gary but also with old fears. Taking a breath, she decided to share her struggles. "I'm not just fighting for our kids anymore. It's about me getting back my voice. I won't let him silence me again." Cheers erupted around the room, and for the first time, Sarah could see a dawn breaking within her. The spark within those parents fanned her flame. What if they could transform their fears into strength, all while she found hers through their collective resolve? She began to understand the path ahead was not just activism. It was also self-discovery. Tonight, she would have to confront Gary. Would she remain steady amidst the storm he could unleash? As hearts raced from anticipation, Sarah whispered, "Together, we're unstoppable." The weight of her decision loomed large, but here was a new beginning. As the clock ticked down toward their rally and their confrontation, one thought held strong: the battle for her voice would be the hardest, but it might just be the breakthrough she needed. What other revelations lay in store? Would this act of bravery finally sever the grip of her past? More importantly, was she truly ready for the fight ahead? The sky dimmed as evening approached, a heavy blanket encasing the town. Sarah stood in front of her mirror, running her fingers through her hair, trying to calm the storm raging inside her. She could see the unease reflected in her own eyes. Tonight wasn't just another argument with Gary. It was a declaration, a face-off that could change everything. Her heart beat wildly, an unsteady rhythm that matched her swirling thoughts. Flashes of their past played out like scenes from a movie, him smiling, then frowning, promises made, then broken. How had she let it come to this? The weight of his expectations had coiled around her for too long. She was ready to unwrap herself, piece by piece, revealing the heart she had hidden for so long. Determined to reclaim her voice, Sarah donned a simple blouse and jacket, a shield for the night ahead. She glanced at her phone, hesitating, but finally turned it off. No distractions. This was about her, not him. Grabbing her keys, she felt a jolt of possibility surge through her. Maybe this was the first step toward true freedom. As she stepped outside, the twilight air was crisp, invigorating her with every breath. She walked briskly toward the local coffee shop where they had agreed to meet. With each step, she felt lighter, the gravity of doubt diminishing. It was as if the storm within her was finally quieting. The shop was alive with chatter and the smell of fresh coffee. She spotted Gary sitting at a table, tapping away on his phone. The sight of him sent a rush of mixed emotions: anger, fear, and a flicker of pity. He looked up and smirked when he noticed her approach. "You're late," he said, his tone all too familiar. "Let us just get to it," Sarah replied firmly, pulling out a chair and sitting down. She needed to assert herself from the start. No more apologies. Gary leaned back, crossing his arms. "I don't get why you're even trying to make a scene. You know you can't change things without me. I've been there every step of the way, and you need to acknowledge that." Her pulse quickened, but she pressed on, fighting the tremor in her voice. "I don't need you anymore. I've realized that your control over me was never about support. It was about power." His expression shifted from annoyance to disbelief. "You really think people will rally behind you? They're not interested in your little games." "Actually, they are," she said, remembering the warmth of the committee's laughter and camaraderie. "I'm not just a pawn in your game anymore, Gary. I'm ready to stand on my own." He leaned in closer, his voice lowering menacingly. "You don't know what you're getting into. Playing activist won't just affect you, it will affect our kids." At the mention of their children, her breath caught. "No. I'm doing this for them. I want them to see what courage looks like. I want them to know they can be loud, too." Silence enveloped them as Gary regarded her, the tension palpable. This was at the moment of reckoning. She could feel the air grow heavy with the weight of their years together. The past wrapped around them like chains, and Sarah felt an urge to break free. With a deep breath, she leaned closer, her eyes locked onto his. "You can't scare me anymore. I won't let you. This is my time to change the narrative. You may have held the pen, but I'm writing a new story." Gary's face twisted in anger, but as she looked into his eyes, she saw something else flickering at the edges: fear. Perhaps he was more afraid of losing control than she was of confronting him. When he got up abruptly, Sarah felt the finality of that moment settle over her. "We're not finished," Gary spat before striding away, but there was a sense of relief that washed over her. As she finally sat alone, the adrenaline in her veins began to settle. She had spoken her truth, and the world didn't crumble. In fact, it felt like the opposite. Something had shifted inside her. What would the committee say when she shared this confrontation? Would they rally behind her even stronger, infused with the fire she now carried? As she took a deep breath, a new determination took root. It was time to rewrite her story, not just for her, but for every parent who felt suppressed. Tomorrow was the rally. Would this newfound strength propel her forward, or would shadows of fear still linger in the distance? The fight was just beginning, and she was ready. The next morning dawned, bright yet hauntingly calm. Sarah stirred awake, the sunlight streaming through her window, illuminating the scattered thoughts in her mind. Today was not just another day, it was the moment she had been gearing up for. The rally. She could feel the nervous energy in her stomach, a mix of excitement and apprehension. Thoughts of Gary crept in, but she brushed them aside. Today wasn't about him, or the life they had shared. It was about her awakening, the new Sarah who dared to stand up. After a hurried shower, she dressed in her favorite blue sweater, a color that reminded her of still waters, a symbol of peace she aimed to achieve amidst the chaos. A quick glance in the mirror reassured her. she looked fierce yet hopeful. As she grabbed her sign, a bold declaration of her intent, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was a message from Emma, one of her closest friends from the committee. "Can't wait to see you. You'll do amazing today." Warmth spread through Sarah's chest. Community. Friendship. These were the things that had been missing for too long. She typed back a quick reply, her fingers flying over the screen. "Thank you. I feel ready." With a deep breath, she made her way to the rally. The streets were alive with chatter, and the sounds of her neighbors gathering. Laughter mixed with the rhythmic clapping of hands as people exchanged stories. It was beautiful, a tapestry of united voices, all echoing the sentiment she held in her heart. Finding her place in the crowd, Sarah felt the nerves return, but this time, they felt lighter, almost electric. She could hear the whispers of encouragement from the people around her. After so long in the shadows, it was refreshing to step into the light. As the rally commenced, leadership of the committee kicked off the speeches, each word resonating deeply within her. Stories of struggle, resilience, and strength painted a vivid picture of the fight they were all part of. Sarah drew strength from their words, realizing how important this moment was not just for her, but for all of them. When it was her turn to speak, a hush enveloped the crowd. The weight of their anticipation was palpable. With trembling hands but a steady heart, she stepped to the front, her sign raised high. "I am here to reclaim my voice." The crowd erupted into cheers, a warm wave of support crashing over her. Sarah felt the adrenaline pumping through her veins as she began to share her story. "I was silenced for so long, lost in someone else's expectations. But today, I stand not just for me, but for everyone who feels trapped." As her voice rang out, she saw familiar faces nodding, tears glistening in their eyes. The connection was real. It was healing. With each word, she could feel the chains of the past falling away, and the strength she had uncovered surged through her body like a wildfire. "I want my children to grow up knowing that their voices matter," she declared. The cheers grew louder, a tidal wave of shared conviction. "I want them to know they can change the world, too." Just then, Sarah spotted Gary at the edge of the crowd, his expression twisted, unmistakably torn between anger and disbelief. The sight of him sent a shiver down her spine, but it quickly melted into resolve. This moment was hers, and she wouldn't let his presence diminish her triumph. As the rally continued, she stood proud, soaking in the energy, the unity, the love. Perhaps this truly was her rebirth. The culmination of her journey wasn't just personal, it was part of something bigger. But as the days unfolded ahead, shadows of uncertainty loomed. Would Gary attempt to regain control? Could her strength withstand the inevitable pushback from him? With the fire of determination still burning brightly within her, Sarah wondered how far she was willing to go to protect her newfound strength, and what battles lay ahead. The air buzzed with anticipation as Sarah stood on the makeshift podium, a sea of parents and children before her, their faces illuminated with hope. After weeks of struggle and self-discovery, today marked a turning point, a vibrant tapestry woven from shared experiences, strength, and courage. She felt the warmth of their collective energy wrap around her, urging her to rise above the noise that had once suppressed her spirit. "Today, we change our narrative," she called, her voice echoing across the park, trembling with emotion. "For too long, we've let fear dictate our actions. No longer." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause, the sound a comforting wave washing over her, pushing her doubts aside. Glancing to the side, Sarah saw Ella, her ally and friend, beaming with pride. Together, they rallied people who shared their hopes, their fears, and their dreams for a brighter future. The sounds of laughter and shouts intermingled harmoniously as children waved colorful banners declaring their dreams. As parents stepped forward, sharing stories of being unheard or overlooked, Sarah felt unity blossom. Each voice danced in the air like music, harmonizing together into a powerful anthem of resilience. She saw Mr. Thompson among them, nodding with approval, pride radiating from his kind face. Then, amidst the joy, she caught a glimpse of a familiar figure lurking at the edge of the crowd. Brian. With his arms crossed and his expression darkened, The once beloved husband now resembled a distant shadow looming over a vibrant celebration. Anxiety twisted in her stomach, but she held her ground. He would not take away this moment. Let us show them we are a community, she continued, raising her arms. We are mothers and fathers, dreamers and doers. We won't let anyone silence us again. This time, the cheers echoed louder, defying the judgment of the past. Every whisper of doubt turned into cheers of solidarity, every heartache transformed into fuel for change. Feeling the ground shake beneath their passion, Sarah led the applause. Her heart swelled with pride for every story shared, for every child's laughter bouncing off the trees. She could see the spark in their eyes, the realization that together, they were a force. They would demand change. They deserved it. Suddenly, Brian stepped in front, blocking her line of sight. The atmosphere shifted, a tense silence wrapping around them like an unwelcome shroud. You think this will change anything? He spat, venom coating his words. You're fooling yourself. Sarah felt the familiar heat of anger rise within her, but it transformed into something different: resolve. I'm not fooling anyone, she shot back, voice unwavering. You've underestimated our strength. You've underestimated me. The crowd murmured in disbelief, a swell of support pulsing through her, pushing her forward. Brian's facade flickered, disbelief etched across his face. They won't stand with you forever, he thrust back, his voice low. You think this is the end? No, Sarah said, stepping forward, eyes steady and unyielding. This is just the beginning. Our children deserve a future where they can dream large and live fully. They deserve voices that are heard. You don't own us. A loud cheer erupted, drowning out Brian's threats. In that moment, Sarah knew they were not just fighting for their children but their identity as a community. Unity surged within her, building a wall against Brian's foreboding presence. She turned back to the crowd, seeing hope flicker in their eyes. We will not be silenced. We will not be ignored. Today isn't just about me, it's about all of us. It's about creating a future together, as allies and friends. As the crowd rallied behind her, filling the air with chants of Sarah, Sarah, a wave of empowerment surged through her, sweeping away the haze of fear. She could finally embrace the artist within the fighter she had become, passionate and alive. After the rally, Sarah saw her community unite in a way she had only dreamed of. Parents gathered to discuss ways to hold the school accountable, crafting letters together, extending invitations to everyone within Maplewood. She watched the parents who had once turned their backs, huddled in solidarity, finding their voices through her efforts. Days turned into weeks, and what began as a simple rally blossomed into a movement. Meetings filled with laughter and brainstorming replaced the whispers of doubt. Fundraisers, art exhibitions showcasing her work, and speaking engagements transformed her narrative into one of strength, showing her children how to stand tall. As Sarah reflected on the journey, she understood that the fight was not solely against Brian's negativity or the school system's shortcomings. It was about understanding her worth, long hidden beneath the surface. She smiled, knowing that the love and support surrounding her had been the catalyst for change. But amidst the joy, Sarah knew that true victory wasn't just about her past. As she stood looking out over the gathering of her community on the eve of their first major district meeting, she felt ready. Ready to face whatever came next. Ready to reclaim her life and her family's future. And as the lights glimmered in the twilight, she listened to the collective laughter of children playing nearby, a soft echo of hope soaring through the night air. This was her transformation. What had once been shattered now stood whole again. And Sarah took a deep breath, ready for whatever came next. Now, it's your turn to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you won't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire and empower you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help others find these life-changing tales. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible transformation. Your thoughts matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and join the movement. Take a step now. This is the moment to show your support and uplift our voices together. Don't wait not even one more second.